So Season 8 competitive is literally just right around the corner, and for many of you watching this, it's probably just started right now. And of course, again, we're here with some more placement matches. And today I have 3 different tip categories that I feel like will hopefully help you guys do a little bit better in this new season. The first one's going to be tips about the season and the competitive changes. Secondly, tips for the meta that we're in right now. And finally, some general gameplay tips that I usually just try to give in most of these videos that'll hopefully kind of, spruce you guys up a little bit. Anyways, let's just get straight onto the season, competitive Season 8 and their tips. And of course, the main big thing about this new season is that past Diamond, they're getting rid of personal performance SR. So it doesn't matter if you have all gold damage, all gold healing, all gold everything, your stats are super high. All that really matters is that you get a win or that you get a loss. And that's going to kind of change how a lot of the game is played. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more later. And of course, I'll link a video at the top part of the screen right now that also talks about that a bit more. But one thing that I've heard that you should kind of keep in mind about performance-based SR is that I've heard from many sources that it's not going to actually exist. Well, getting rid of performance-based SR at Diamond Plus is not going to happen at the very start of Season 8. It seems like they're going to wait a few days to a week to kind of just make sure that it's all working out well before it actually comes out in the new season. And I guess we won't know that until the season actually starts. But I would be a little bit careful about the new season, because if you don't want to play with performance-based SR and Diamond Plus, maybe wait a few days. I always say wait a few days anyways, because the first few days it's just crazy and the matchmaking is always terrible. But this is, I guess, another reason to wait a few days. But maybe if you actually think that, doing, some games with performance-based SR would help you out a little bit, because you usually do it really well, maybe spam all of your games as fast as you can. That could be really nice for you as well. A different tip for the season that's I think going to be very important is that in this new season, you're going to want to try to get good team comps, and I think good team comps are going to matter a lot more now that you don't have your personal performance. You just want to win the game, and the easiest way to win the game is to get a good team comp. So I'd say try to focus more on, asking your teammates if they'll go this guy, or maybe trying to get better at a lot of different characters so that you can fit a lot of different team comps. I think flexing is going to be a lot more important in this meta, and flex players are probably going to do a lot better, hopefully, than they did in the past. So do try to focus on getting good team comps, but don't flame your team if they won't switch. It's okay. Just try your best to get them to play some different heroes, and I guess try your best to get yourself to play some different heroes as well. Something else, I guess, as well, connecting to Season 8 and the lack of performance-based SR, and this is mainly Diamond Plus. Below Diamond, Season 8 is very similar to Season 7, but this is the main big differences, so that's why I wanted to talk about them first. You're going to have to focus a lot more on communication in this season than your own stats, calling out who to go on, when to go on them, what to do like that, and just try to get really good team plays, because that actually wins games. Just popping off yourself won't always win a game. So focus on that a little bit more. And I guess finally, try to flex at least 2 roles so that you can be useful every single game. If you flex just with 1 role, that could still be pretty useful. Especially if you flex tank, I think you will be fine every single game. If you can play every tank, you'll be fine. But if you're trying to play DPS, maybe you could flex DPS. But I try to maybe play 2 DPSs and 1 support, or 2 DPSs and 1 tank. Maybe even just a Roadhog that's, kind of like a off tank anyways. And that should be able to help you quite a bit, so that you'll be able to just fit team comps. I feel like that really is going to be important this new season. You're going to try to have to get that as much as you can, at least in Diamond Plus. And of course, below Diamond, it's essentially just what it was last season, honestly. To the next topic that I want to talk about, tips for this meta. There's quite a few, and I can't go over every single different random thing about this meta that I feel like is important, but I'm going to try to talk about the main big ones, and there's 8 to 10 of these things. So get ready, buckle up, and here we go. So the first thing I'm going to say is that in this meta, Orisa is really great. And if you aren't a good tank player, or if you're just a good DPS player with good tracking, I think she's going to be one of the best tanks for you to play. She's very easy to play, really good for most maps, and in many cases just playing out better than Reinhardt just because how her shield works. It counters spam really easily, and it works with spam really easily as well. Works with high ground, works with low ground. Orisa's overall a very good pick, and again, not way too hard to play, so you might want to pick her up if you just, main DPS or main support and want to play a different tank as well. A different thing about this meta is that Junkrat is still probably one of the easiest DPSs to carry with, and if you have someone that's on your team that's like, hey, should I go this guy or Junkrat, probably pick Junkrat, as he is going to still pop off and be really good this meta. Or I guess you could get a Pharaoh every game to try to counteract the Junkrat. That could also work as well, because we are still going to be seeing a lot of Junkrat, and because he does work great with the supports in the meta and with Orisa. Widowmaker is a different thing that I also want to talk about. She's really good actually in Season 8, and she's just going to kind of show up even more in this season, I think. There aren't really way too many changes that's coming out at the beginning of Season 8, so we're going to have to wait for a while. But Widowmaker has shown up to be a big problem, so just kind of get ready for her. Either get a dive comp versus her, as that can just kind of body her if you can get a nice dive comp, or just try to get another Widowmaker to counter her, get a Genji, or get an Orisa wall, and just make, just play around walls so that she can't one-shot your teammates. It's kind of hard, it's kind of annoying, but that's really all you can really do against this character. Or again, just get a comp that works pretty well versus her. Dive comp is another thing that I should say. Dive comp is still pretty good in this meta. I think the spam comp is probably the best comp. Death ball works okay, but spam comp kind of attacks it really badly. But dive comp still works pretty well because if you just jump on the enemy spammers, and if you actually play it really well, and if you have multiple flankers like a Genji, Tracer, and Doomfist or something like that, it can work. It's going to be harder than playing a spam comp, much harder, but it still can work. Just make sure that if you are playing a dive comp, that you call out the targets in voice chat. Otherwise, I think you are always going to lose that team fight. But if you call out who your teammates should be going after, then you can win without way too much trouble. Zenyatta and Mercy, and I guess more a little bit, are also something that's going to be pretty good in this meta. They were good in last meta, and this meta is essentially just the same as last meta with a few changes to Doomfist and some other characters. But Mercy and Zenyatta have been the best supports for a while now. They're just very consistent, really good ultimates, really just offensive and offensive. They can just get a lot of picks, and in solo queue, just good supports to play. You can still play the other supports. You can still play Ana, you can still play Lucio, but they are going to be a lot harder and a lot less consistent, and they don't really fit in with the meta as well as these other characters, but you can still play them. I just recommend that if you just want to pick a off support, like let's say again you're a tank main and you want one support to play, I'd say Mercy Zenyatta. Even though Mercy's a little bit boring in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinions, still probably the best support in the game right now. I'd say most people would probably say that. Triple DPS. This is something that's going to keep showing up in the meta that we have right now. I think for the most part we're seeing 2-2-2. The average 2 tanks, 2 supports, 2 DPS, but still a lot of the times there's just a lot of DPS players and people play triple DPS. And I think that's still an okay idea, especially on Koth, on King of the Hill, on offensive maps. On defense, though, I don't think it's way too great. But if you do get triple DPS, I'd say probably try to get an Orisa or Winston. With either of those characters, you have a chance to win that game. But if you go in with like a Roadhog and triple DPS, it's going to be very, very difficult for your DPS to pop off, and the enemy DPS are just going to have a much easier time. So kind of keep that in mind. Junkertown, that's been a thing that's been very hard to deal with this season. Bastion, pirate ship, jumps on the point, and just steamrolls your team, honestly. One of the only ways that people have really figured out how to fight this is either get a huge amount of spam on the enemy cart and just hope that you can one-shot the Bastion quick enough. That doesn't really work way too well. Another thing that a lot of people have figured out, though, is that if you're on Junkertown, on defense, camp the enemy spawn and just try to make so that you can stall as long as possible to keep Bastion off that cart. And that's kind of what you have to do. I don't think it's very fun. I don't like how the map works at all. I think that's dumb, but there you go. That's how you can maybe do a little bit better on Junkertown, especially if you're playing someone like Reaper, who normally does absolutely horrendous versus Bastion. If he has to walk around that corner onto the point at the beginning, you can do pretty good at that character. Speaking of Reaper, Reaper is actually a pretty good choice right now as well. Maybe not the best in the highest elo. We are seeing people like Spirit climb really high, but for a lot of people, it's kind of hard to climb after a certain point. But from like bronze to diamond, he can actually climb really easily. All you have to do in this season is just focus the enemy tanks, because there's not way too many people protecting them. Just walk up past the Orisa shield, pop her a few times, and then since you're up tanks, you're probably going to win that fight, because in these lower elos, fights are really kind of just all over the place. People don't really know exactly what they're doing. Reaper can just tear up a fight really easily in Gold and Diamond. Well, any elo through that. So maybe if you want to pick up a DPS that can do really well this season, at least at a certain point, and can really carry you out of those lower elos, Reaper is probably one of the best characters for that. Tanks are all pretty good in this season, I'm going to say. You can pretty much play whoever you want to. Orisa obviously is strong, but Reinhardt is still a good enough pick if you want to play him, especially on King's Row or other just close maps like that. Just make sure that you know what tank to play in what situation. And speaking of that, I guess one really good situation is trying to get like an Orisa Roadhog. That's extremely hard to play against, has a ton of spam, has a ton of walls, very tanky. That's probably one of the best tank comps you can possibly get. But even if you get like a Reinhardt Zarya, which is a pretty classic combo, or like a Diva Winston, any of those classic combos, that's still going to work for yourself. Just don't mix 2 tanks that don't really work together, like Orisa Zarya. It can work, but it's going to be kind of hard for yourself. And I just wouldn't really recommend that compared to just, fixing up your team comp in other ways. Finally, here we are at the general gameplay tips, and I'm going to be doing these really quickly because these are pretty much what I say every single season. I just want to remind anyone who just kind of forgot about these, I guess. First off, make sure to practice your aim before every single game. I just put on like 5 to 10 minutes of practice, and just in the practice range, there you go. Just make sure that you're at the top of your game because these placement matches matter a lot more than your average match. If you lose a game, obviously stop playing for a while and do something else. A lot of people want to grind through all their games, and if you're a player that just needs to play a ton of games in a row to do better, sure, do that. But if you get tilted really fast, just do something else for a while in between every single game, because personally I get tilted pretty quickly, and this could be the only way to really get rid of that. Speaking of that, if you do get tilted often, especially from teammates, try muting them for one game, play some music, and focus on yourself and focus on doing the best you can. If that works, and that works for you, then there you go. Use that for a few games. If it doesn't work, then just don't try that again. Just for myself personally, sometimes I just turn on Pandora and I can just completely demolish the enemy team. But sometimes maybe I just need to focus more on team communication. And mainly when I'm playing DPS, I feel like this works the best. Finally, I'm going to say, in this season, pick a few main heroes that you want to main. Not just one, but a few. And I'd really recommend about 3. For myself, maybe I'd play Reaper, Zarya, and Mercy. And there we go. I can play every single role. I can play one character pretty well in all those roles, and there we go. I just recommend a good 3 number, and it can be 3 of any hero. I'd just say probably don't go with 3 supports or 3 tanks or 3 DPS. I'd probably mix it up a little bit so that you can fit better team comps. Anyways, as always, guys, that's all I'm going to say about this new season with the new placement matches and really everything that's going on. Unfortunately, we don't have way too many hero changes, which I think are the most exciting thing about the new season, but, I mean, those will eventually come. And in the comment section down below, tell me, what do you guys feel like should be some of the new hero changes? Do you feel like maybe Junkrat should be nerfed a little bit? Maybe some of the other characters should be buffed a little bit? Maybe some of the support should be changed? I feel like maybe Anna and Lucio could use a bit of help right now, as they honestly are quite a bit weaker than a lot of other characters. But what would you guys like to see in this new season? Anyways, as always, guys, thank you all for watching. I just wanted to talk about the placement matches today, and I really do wish you all the best new placement matches. And as well, I guess, if you do have any other tips to give each other about how you do well in placement matches, please do leave that down in the comment section down below. Anyways, as always, guys, leave a like, press the subscribe button if you want to see any more, press the notification button. And as always, guys, thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful day.